this video, we're going to talk about the different forms of notation and then head into example 3, where we'll talk about what the derivative means in terms of a graph. So first, let's talk about the notation. I'm going to run through all the different ways that we talk about the derivative and the way you read them out loud. So this is read as f prime of x. So f prime of x, because it's f and then the apostrophe is prime and then x. Y prime is again the derivative of x, but it's going to be the function y equals something x. Dy dx, or the derivative of y with respect to x. This means the function is y equals, but the function that we're taking the derivative of is a function in terms of x. And then the last one, d dx, means the derivative of x at x. So usually we'd say that when we want to take the derivative and then plug in a value. So these are 4 different ways that the book or the questions can ask you to take a derivative. In example 3, we're going to talk about how to graph f prime of x given f of x. So right here I have a graph. I'm not really sure what the function is, but we're going to use this graph in order to graph the derivative here on the right. So if this is the graph of the function, remember what the derivative is. So the derivative graphs slope. So on the derivative graph, my x-axis is going to be x, and my y-axis is going to be m, because this is slope. So what we're going to do is we're going to look back at this graph, and we're going to find the slopes between these values. So let's now look at the average slope between the points A and B. So the run is 1 and the rise is 3. So between the points A and B, we have an average slope of 3. Between the points B and C, we have a rise of 1 and a run of 1. So we get m is equal to 1 between B and C. Between C and D, we get m is equal to negative 1/2. Between D and E, we get that we have a slope of about negative 5/4, because we run 4 and go down 5. And then between E and F, we have a slope of negative 1. And then at F right here, the slope is 0. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to use our average slope. So the average between 0 and 1 is going to be 1/2. So at 1/2, I have a slope of 3. So then I plot the point 1/2, 3. And then at the points between B and C, that's x values are between 1 and 2. So about 1.5, I have a slope of 1. And then at C, right here where the graph goes up and then down, I have a slope of 0 because the tangent line is going to be horizontal. So at 2, I have a x-intercept for the slope. And then the next one between C and D is between 2 and 3. So at 2.5, I have a negative 1/2. And then between D and E, I go from 3 to 5. So the average is 4. And I have negative 5/4 as a slope. And then at 5, I have a slope of negative 1. And then at 6, I have a slope of 0. So you can see this curve starting to take shape. So I get a curve kind of like this. And so this is the graph then of y equals f prime of x. So again, just to recap what I did is I took the slopes between here. So if the first value was 3 and the second value is 5, then the average x value is 4. And the slope is negative 5/4. So I get to 0.4 comma negative 5/4.